Welcome back to week 10 of Striper Season Updates with On the Water. I'm Matt Haeffner, and over the next month, we'll be bouncing around the Striper coast following different local bites as the bass migrate north. We'll talk to all sorts of credible striper fishing sources from Jersey to Maine to give you the scoop on how the bite changes over the coming weeks. Last week, I spoke to Jenny Ackerman, a surf caster, custom rod builder, and employee at Grumpy's Tackle in Seaside Park, New Jersey. Jenny applies her local experience in the striped bass fishery to help customers make informed decisions about what tackle to use, when to use it, and how to use it. Whether it's talking custom rods, new reels, or how to properly soak a chunk in the surf, Jenny and the Grumpy's crew are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to fishing the Jersey Shore, especially around Island Beach State Park. But this week, we'll be heading back up the coast to southern New England to talk stripers with well-known fishing guide and friend of On the Water, Captain Joe Diorio. Joe has over 25 years of experience fishing for trophy stripers in the Eastern Long Island Sound. Right around this time last year, On the Water's Chris Megan headed down to the Connecticut River to fish for Topwater stripers with Joe, and they absolutely crushed it. You can see all that footage in Season 19, Episode 1 of On the Water's Angling Adventures on YouTube. To talk more about the striper migration around the Long Island Sound and the bite in the Connecticut River in early June, here's Captain Joe Diorio. Cool. So, Joe, thanks for joining the show this week, man. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, not a problem. Happy to be here.
I wanted to start off by just, New York and New Jersey have had such a phenomenal spring migration, and some are saying it's the best spring season that they've had in a long time. So I wanted to know kind of how your season has started off in comparison to maybe the rest of the coast and in years past in your experience.
I mean, we're pretty much right on par for where we were for the past 3 years, 4 years. Back in 2016, 17, 18, maybe the run started a little bit earlier. We were getting bigger fish, but right now we're right on par. We're getting a lot of slot fish, ranging from 28 to 34 inches, and a couple fish in that 40-inch range. I think we got 4 or 5 over 40 inches already, up to 30 pounds. But the main thing right now for us has been the bluefish run. The bluefish run has been absolutely amazing. It started last Sunday. Not this past Sunday, the Sunday before, and
yeah,
man, it has just been outstanding. We were out fishing and we were struggling, and so we went down on these flats, and all of a sudden, one rod bends, the other rod bends, the other rod bends, and I look in the water, and there's a quarter mile long of bluefish. So it's been pretty good. I know there's still a lot of fish spawning in here in the Connecticut River. Same with the Hudson and stuff like that, I'm sure. But I would say over this upcoming week is usually the week that, the bigger fish come in. We get some migrating fish that come in. The next 2 weeks here should be like gangbusters. So it should be pretty awesome.
That's great. Yeah. I was going to say the bluefish are probably one of my favorite things, and we always end up talking about them in every one of these updates because as they've moved up as the stripers have moved up the coast, the bluefish obviously follow. And it seemed like you were saying that maybe the bass showed up a little bit later to Connecticut this year, but they're there in full swing now. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about, your experience with On the Water last year. I think it was right around this time you guys shot the Angling Adventures episode 1 of season 19. So you were the first episode of that. And what a way to start, because you guys you and Chris Megan just crushed bass on Topwater. And so,
yeah.
Right around this time of year, it seems like that's the prime time for fishing around river mouths off of the Long Island Sound. So what are some of the features that you look for in areas like that? And what have the fish been feeding on around you that causes them to move in shallow like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we did the show last year. I think it was June 6th or 7th.
Right.
So basically a week away from it. And yeah, like I said, this is the week that it usually kicks off. Usually right around June 4th, June 3rd, June 4th. We start to see these bigger fish roll in. The reason why they're rolling in, they're getting done spawning. I think a lot of the fish that we catch in June here are dropbacks, so they get done spawning in the river. So for the past month or month and a half, they've been feeding on herring, shad, maybe some gizzard shad as well, alewives. But as they work their way back, obviously the bunker come in, and there's a lot of bunker. There definitely is. There's eels in the river as well. What I think these fish are really looking for right now, obviously is structure. Structure is a huge part of it, but the spots that me and Chris were fishing on the show were just big mud flats. And the reason why the mud flats are so great is because the water in the sound is like 54 to 56 degrees, depending on what swing of the tide. But if you go in the rivers are anywhere from 68 to 75 degrees, depending on if it's an incoming or outgoing tide. Today we got a 90-degree day here in Connecticut, so river's going to be hot this afternoon, tomorrow, and it's going to heat up those mud flats, and those fish just like to go on top of those mud flats and just warm up their bodies, get some feeding heavier. You're going to see, over the past 2 weeks, you'll probably see a lot of the fish that we have had. They'd be following a bait, they follow it, they hit it, miss it. And the thing is I don't think their bodies are warm enough to really get in their feeding frenzy. And I might be wrong, who knows? But once we get a little bit warmer and these fish start dropping down a little bit quicker, a little bit more, the mud flat heats them up, and that's what gets these fish fired up. They're looking for bunker, full size bunker, medium size bunker. There obviously are little shiners down in the area over here as well, but to get those really bigger fish that we're looking for, you want a big bait. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
You don't want little stuff. Not saying that little stuff doesn't work, because a lot of the times I have been throwing 5 to 7 inch baits, over the past few weeks. But that last week was really the start of the season for me, because I like using 9-inch plus baits.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely just demolishing 9-inch baits right now. It's been awesome. So like I said, they're looking for bunker. They're looking for, anytime you find a pot of bunker, cast around them. If you find some structure, rocks, a point, a jetty or something like that, fish around that as well. But don't be afraid to fish these mud flats, because the mud flats will hold a lot of fish.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because yesterday I was actually out on my kayak doing a little scouting of a shallow bay, and right by the inlet there's a big flat, and on both the inside of the inlet and the outside of the inlet there's a big sandy flat, and those bass and blues were both just kind of nosing around on the flat. But they were getting real picky, and I noticed it was because of that water temperature. And you mentioned the substantial difference between water temperature in the Sound and the river mouths. So when does it start to get a little bit too warm in the river mouths that those bass are kind of moving off those flats, or too lethargic to at least feed on those flats?
Yeah, I would say it's usually when the water turns like 81-ish, 82.
Yeah, so you got a few weeks probably.
Yeah, we got a few weeks. I think usually it's right around the second week of July, third week of July. The fish really they're gone out of the river.
Yeah.
That's when we start fishing, the Sound, Block Island Sound, and different areas like that.
Yeah.
But now the water's cold. It's 55 degrees, 54 degrees, depending on where you are, what point of the tide you're at. Not to say that they won't eat, because you go to places like the Race here in Connecticut. The guys are crushing them, 3-weighing, soft plastics, diamond jigs and stuff like that.
Right.
I'd rather catch fish on Topwater this time of year.
100%. 100%. It's an absolute blast, especially, and we're going to probably end up laying in some of that footage of you guys fishing the dock, because that action, that side to side action, even though it doesn't exactly look like, color wise and stuff like a bunker, it's that action of the back and forth slow darting in a shallow flat that's going to attract the bass, because it just looks exactly like an injured menhaden swimming across the surface. Really does. Totally.
I tell my clients, if that plug's going straight through the water, if it's just going like this through the water, you might get a hit here and there,
right?
But you really need, and what sets the good fisherman, from my clients, from like an okay guy, is the side to side action. If yours going like side to side to side, and not forward to side, that makes a big difference. It gives the fish a lot longer time for them to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
So work with your retrieval rates. Make sure it's more of a side to side, twitch, and a walk the dog motion versus you're pulling it through the water, because I just think you got a better chance of them hitting that plug. If you're in a zone this big versus a zone this big,
right?
I'm gonna eat a cheeseburger when it's like this instead 100%. Of like this. You know what I mean? I'm fat and lazy, just like the fish are.
Yeah, well, they're opportunistic feeders, right? So, and something I've learned to do is when I'm fishing with a dock or a spook, or pretty much anything topwater, is if you get the right action behind it, and that walk the dog action, you can almost use the current to your advantage, especially in a place like a river mouth, and keep that dock in a really right in the same spot. and continuing that action back and forth. But if that fish is kind of tailing right behind it, and you keep the action up, it doesn't have to chase anything. It's still got that action, and it's, barely moving in one spot. So the current will also really help, in places like shallow rips on those flats.
No, I agree. I tell my clients, when I have a trolling motor on my boat now, so it makes life a lot easier. Once you find a pile of fish, you spot lock it right on there. And, I tell my clients, cast off the side and work it to the back. And, you'll pull fish in from the side to the back of the boat. And while they're in the back of the boat, I just tell them to twitch it back and forth. And it basically keeps the dock or whatever, the pencil popper,
Right.
whatever it may be. You're just keeping that in just one area. So it definitely gives those fish a little bit longer of a chance to eat it. It's just awesome. I mean, there's nothing better than Topwater.
100%. So, because you guys were catching all those fish on Topwater, right at I believe it was the Connecticut River. I remember you mentioned something about all of those fish, none of those fish having sea lice. And, even though it's the peak month of the migration, you could say, because there's all these big fish moving around, none of them had sea lice. So do you think that that's characteristic every year? Like those fish tend to just hunker down and those are the winter holdovers from the Connecticut River, or where do those migratory fish go in relation to those?
I mean, that's what I think. I think a lot of the fish that we're getting right now, a lot of fish that me and Chris caught last year, up until June 15th, around there, we don't really see many migratory fish in the Connecticut River.
Oh, wow.
I think a lot of the fish that we do catch are spawners. I talked to a buddy. He sent me footage of, actual spawning going on Thursday or Friday of last week.
Oh, wow.
So, there's definitely a good amount of spawning here in the Connecticut River, in the upper sections, more towards Massachusetts. I know west of me, I mean, there's a lot of big fish, migratory fish coming through right now. Western Sound's absolutely loaded with bigger fish. Like I said, the race, which is 10 miles away from me, straight out from the Connecticut River, they're catching migratory fish out there. But it seems like, we're in a weird spot. We got Long Island completely on the other side. It's a long way for the fish to get to us. There's a lot of baits for that, coming from, Stanford, Fairfield area. A lot of those fish are over there now. Even in Branford's got a lot of fish from what I'm hearing, and those fish are moving their way over, but it takes them a long time to get over here because there's a lot of bait in between here and there. So I think we don't see a lot of those fish. We'll see the bluefish a lot quicker. I think the bluefish are obviously migratories, but it seems like they show up right around the last 2 weeks of May, pretty thick, all the way through that first week of June, and then they move north. I mean, the guys in Rhode Island are crushing them right now. I think a good population of our bluefish that was here last week, like I said, they were a mile long. We went from catching 40, 50 bluefish in the morning, this weekend, my other captain caught 11. This morning, we had a lot of bluefish on, but, we just didn't land them long. I think we ended up landing 5 or 6. It goes from 40 to 5 or 6, but, I mean, if we hooked every single one, we might have caught 20. But, still, like I said, I think a lot of the bluefish do move quicker than the other ones. They're just looking for that bait, that pile of bait. And, obviously Narragansett's got a ton of bait over there.
Yeah.
And there's Connecticut River just doesn't have the bait yet. And I think that's the main reason why a lot of the migratory fish don't come here. And, but that being said, they'll be here. They'll be here eventually.
Right.
And usually, like I said, this is the week that it happens. And next week, this week it's when I told Chris, we planned the trip with Chris about a year ahead before, we did the shoot.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny. Last year, I called him up 3 days or 4 days ahead of time. I said, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. And he was like, What do you mean? I'm like, well, the fish jumps, we're getting some good fish. It's kind of like this year. We're getting some really good fish and we're getting some slot fish. There's no real major pattern. But, I said, I don't know if we're going to do it. I'll keep in contact with you over the next few days. And then after I hung up the phone with him, I went out for a charter, and that was the night that it happened. We started. I told my clients today, they were like, well, why didn't we get any really big bass today? I go, well, they could have been here. It's just, it may take them a day. It may take them 3 days, 4 days to come down the river, maybe even a week. it depends on how many, golden shiners they want to eat.
Yeah.
See how many herring are still up. There's still a crap ton of herring up in the Connecticut River as well. So, you know, they can be here in a day, or they can be here in 4 days, 5
Right.
days, 6 days. It's just when they decide to get here. And last year we planned it perfect, because that's typically, for the past 3 years, between July 5th and July 10th, I'm sorry, June 5th and June 10th, that's when the population really, really comes in thick. I mean, really, really thick. And I usually don't start seeing migratory fish with sea lice, in the river, right around the 11th to 14th.
Yeah, and so when you do start to get those migratory fish around there, do you change up your tactics at all, or are those fish also like still willing to take the top water, or do you kind of move out deeper at all?
No, same tactic.
Same thing?
you know,
That's awesome.
it's pretty cool, and it's when those migratory fish come in here, it creates more competition for them.
Okay.
Right now with the bluefish around, I think, and the reason why you get so many bluefish compared to stripers, because I think the bluefish just push them right out.
Yeah.
They're like, these things are crazy. I can't. It's like I'm going to go back to me eating. Me eating versus my old self now, and then myself at 21.
Yeah.
I'm going to run to go get that bait. And that's how those bluefish are. They're the young ones. They're like trying to get everything, and the stripers are fat and lazy.
Yeah.
Same thing with the migratory fish. I think the migratory fish got a little bit more pep in their step, but they do give some competition to those local fish. And they're like, man, if I really want to eat, I better step up my game and start, chasing after these baits and crushing them a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think, and the same thing goes with the bigger fish. Once the bigger fish push down or push in, that creates more competition for these fish as well. It's all about competition. You know what I mean? I truly, truly believe the more competition, the more fish that you have in the area. And as long as they want to eat, obviously you'll find pods of fish that just don't want to eat.
Yeah.
Today I was over, once it hit like 9 o'clock in the morning, we were over a pot of fish. I was looking at thousands of fish, like off my side imaging. And,
Yeah.
we would get a hit every once in a while, but they just weren't hungry. They weren't in a feeding mode.
Yeah.
We had bright blue skies with no wind. If we had a little wind today, it might have changed things up. Like when I shot the show with Chris, if you guys watch the show, it was all bright blue, sunny skies, not a cloud in the sky. And the one thing that you guys didn't see was, the wind. We had some pretty heavy wind. It was like 10 to 15 miles an hour. Put a little chop on the water. The fish dirtied it up a little bit.
Yep,
The fish
stay in
couldn't
the water,
see this. And I told Chris, I said, enjoy it now, because once this wind dies, it's completely done. And that's exactly what happened. The wind died down. I mean, we still caught fish, just not at the same clip that we caught them at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, wind helps.
You went out for a second there.
Sorry about that. I got a phone call. So yeah, like I said, the stain to water, the clarity, all that really, really helps. So just because it's bad one day, that afternoon could be great, because like if I go out, I know this morning was a little tough for me because we had flat calm conditions. If I go out there probably now or in the next half hour, I'm going to probably slay them, because the wind is blowing 10 to 15 miles an hour here right now.
Yep.
And that's what I plan on doing.
Good. Well, I don't want to keep you too long then, but I do have one or two more questions for you, because I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a little bit about, I know you and Chris have also taken a couple runs to Block Island Sound, and you guys absolutely cleaned up there. But in a different way. I think those are migratory fish, and you're fishing totally different than you were. You're not fishing with docks out in Block Island Sound. So can you talk a little bit about kind of the structure or environment that you look for there, and why it differs so much?
Yeah. So with Block, I mean, there's already fish showing up at Block. I mean, I don't think they're huge or anything like that. But the thing about Block, it's a rip. So when I'm fishing the Connecticut River, like I said, I'm looking for flats. I'm looking for, it goes from 10 feet to 2 feet or whatever it may be. And I'm fishing those little mud breaks, you know what I mean? The sand breaks. With Block, you're fishing rock piles. They're big rock piles. There's huge rips. So you see the actual rip in the water. And it goes from 50 feet to 30 feet, back down to 30 feet, back up to, or back down to 50 feet, back up to 40 feet. So you're fishing these big rock piles.
Yep.
There are places like that in the Connecticut River. The other day we were catching right in the middle of the channel on 25 feet of water, and they're coming up smashing baits on top.
That's awesome.
So you can definitely do that. You can definitely fish deeper water, but most of the fish that you're going to get in the river are shallow. When you're fishing a place like Block or the rips in the Long Island Sound, I'm three-weighing mostly. Live eels when I'm three-weighing, or even in the Sound, I'll three-way live bunker,
Yep.
Which is also very, very deadly. But it's a completely different style of fishing. You're dropping down to the bottom, you're taking a couple of cranks off the bottom, and you're keeping that bait. I mean, you got to think a lot of those fish in the deeper water are hugging tight to the bottom. They're using the rocks as a break and current. So this way, if they're above those rocks, it's a lot more work to stay in the current. Versus if they're hiding behind the rock, they're able to conserve a lot more energy, and that's the way it is a lot of time with these bigger fish. So when I'm out there, I like using Joe Baggs paddle tails, the 12-inch, the 7-inch, Joe Baggs 14 or 13 or 14-inch eels, something kind of like this.
Okay.
Not saying that this won't work in the river. I mean, we caught fish on this in the river
Right.
the other day. I mean, people are catching fish on eels in the river. It's just I want to fish topwater, this time of year. I have all July, August, and half of September to fish, on the bottom. So that's the reason why we focus on topwater this time of the year. But it's very, very, very deadly out there. Obviously the fishing's awesome. It's one of the last, major stockpiles of fish that we do have. The reason why it's better later in the year is because I think a lot of the fish that we get here in Connecticut, the fish in the Chesapeake, the Hudson, they go out there because it's a refuge for them as far as cold water. The water warms up in the Sound a lot quicker than it does out in the Block. So you got to think you have the Thames River, you have the Housatonic River, you have the Connecticut River, you have all these rivers pumping 80, 85 degree water into the Sound, which makes the Sound really warm, which is great for swimming, but it's not great for stripers.
Right.
Those stripers are going to look for colder water, more oxygen, and I think that's what Block has. Montauk has it. Places out in the Cape have it as well. And I think that's the reason why those areas heat up a lot more, than the places obviously closer to home.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like, in order to have success at a place like Block, you really have to be dialed into the structure and take much more calculated drops rather than, you're fishing on the flats. You can kind of cast the dock out and, you're still fishing over those little troughs and whatnot, but you're calling those fish in. Whereas, they're hiding behind big structure and stuff in the deeper rips. You got to work a little bit harder for them to get down there. So,
yeah, I mean, they're, fishing even locally here, fishing the rips here, a guy, Blaine Anderson, who was a great captain here in Connecticut. I used to watch him all the time. If he missed his rock, there were specific rocks. Like if you missed that rock by 5 feet, he would restart his drift. It's the same thing with Block. It's the same thing with Montauk. Same thing with local fishing. Whether you're fishing, we'll just say Bartlett's Reef. If you're not hitting that area right on the mark, you're not going to be on that fish. You know what I mean? So we're on the flats. Yes, the fish have a tendency to spread out a little bit more. You can call a fish in because it's so shallow of water, but still the same thing. It's kind of funny. You'll be drifting down, or I'll be driving using my side imaging. I use my side imaging a lot more than I ever have this year. I've never been much of an electronic guy, to be completely honest. I've always been about history.
Yeah.
What my logs say and stuff like that, and know where the fish are. This year, I've basically just focused on learning the side imaging and getting that dialed in a lot better using my Ray Marine electronics. So it's really, really helped find a lot of these fish. And so it's funny, you'll be driving along and you look off your side imaging and you're like, oh, there's 100 fish on your left-hand side. Let's cast here. But then you go like 100 feet down and there's absolutely nothing. You're not getting hit. And then you keep going, and you find another pot of fish, so yeah, you can drift, you can do that, but if you really want to get dialed in, you got to have good electronics. And then the other thing that is a game changer is the trolling motor. Like I said, I mean, keeps you on the fish longer than you are able to. Last year I have a couple boats that I use for down here, and my big red boat the trolling motor went on it last year. It had like a little minor issue, and I was waiting for a part to come in, and I had to fish with my backup boat for 2 days. And those 2 days were in the middle of a moon tide, and it was absolutely ripping. So for the first like half of the tide, I was crushing fish, and then once the tide got to the top of the tide, I had nothing to slow my drift down. So it was a struggle. I mean, we caught fish, but it was definitely still a struggle versus, once I got my trolling motor back up and running, I was able to slow myself down, keep that bait in front of keep my dock or keep my bunker, whatever it may be that I was using, keeping it in front of their face just a little bit longer to get that hit. So, don't be afraid to use electronics. Don't be afraid to use today's technology it really does make a huge difference. I never thought it would. Because I had trolling motors with foot pedals and stuff like that before, the spot lock, and you're able to, trot your drift down at a specific speed. Makes a huge difference. It makes an average fisherman to a really good fisherman. That's what it's done with me. So
yeah, I can imagine. And you're also able to save a lot of those, you can save them on your GPS and things. Like if you get onto a bite, continually in a certain spot, I think that it allows you to, I mean, I'm not sure, I don't use electronics like you were saying. So I'm pretty sure you're allowed to, save those waypoints, and that way it plays into the whole history thing that you were just talking about. I know historically there's going to be fish there, so you can always go back to it if need be.
Yeah, no, totally. And one other thing I'll add is, when you're fishing like places like the Connecticut River, the Thames, the Housatonic, a lot of these mud flats will have rock piles on top of the mud flats, and that's just a dead giveaway of like great structure, great area. Not only are those fish going to be able to warm themselves in the mud, but there's going to be bait fish hiding in those rocks. There's going to be eels. There's going to be bunker that wants to hide behind those rocks, or whatever it may be. So if you're able to find mud, you're able to find rocks, and you're fishing a river system, you got a really good chance of getting on fish. And, the same thing goes without fishing the sound. You're able to find, a point or a jetty or a rip out in the middle of nowhere that creates some turbulence on top of the water, and you could see that rip line. You got a good chance of seeing a lot of fish there as well.
All right. So last couple questions for you. We talked real brief about bluefish, and for someone like me, I love bluefish, and I know you were saying you love blues too, but I would imagine, as a guide, you get a lot of clients who find bluefish to be sort of a nuisance, and they kind of just want to get on those bass. So is there ever been a time, or how would you, I guess, kind of weed through the bluefish when they're in really thick like they have been the past couple of weeks?
You just move, get away from them, go to a different spot.
Yeah.
There's plenty of water, whether you're fishing, especially the Connecticut River or different areas. If you're tired of catching bluefish, I don't see why anyone would be. I mean, I used to hate them back in the day because, I literally hated bluefish. My best friend Dan is like, why do you like these things all of a sudden? I'm like, well, because they're badass, and I'm not fishing soft plastics like I used to. It's a lot, and the dock makes it a lot easier. You got the handle up top, so you're able to grab the plug like this, and you're able to bring it overboard. Versus, you're using a soft plastic like this, they'll eat all the way up until right at the hook.
Yeah,
right there, and then you're like, well, that just became a sea bass bait.
Exactly.
So. And same thing goes with soft plastics. You're using these soft plastics on a weightless jig head, you know what I mean, or a weightless hook, and they'll eat all the way up to the hook, and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So I can understand how they can be frustrating, and sometimes you just want to catch stripers, but after not having them for such a long period of time, the bluefish were tough for so long. So not having them, and now that we have them back, you won't hear me complain about them anymore. I absolutely love them, and I if anyone doesn't want to catch them, I'll try to move, but I'll tell them, hey, enjoy it, because it won't last. It's only going to last for like a week or two here, and we're already on the downward slope as it is. Like I said, a lot of the fish are moving out, so enjoy them while you can. That's all I got to say.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I always say to people. You know, they're a super strong fish, and as much of a pain as they can be, it's like, you know, if you can't get into the bass, at least you got the blues around.
You know, pound for pound, they're a better fighting fish. You
Oh,
know,
100%.
stripers don't jump. They don't jump 3 feet in the air. You know, you set the hook on one of these things and then they jump, you know, 3, 4 feet in the air, throwing the hook 15 feet back at you. I mean, what gets better than that? Nothing.
Yeah, how do you
So
not, you got, it cracks you up a little bit. Like, you know, you can't not laugh at it. It's a blast.
it's great. Just don't hang your head over the side of the boat. I had a buddy that got his nose bit off almost.
Oh, Jesus. That's insane. Oh my
No,
God.
he really did. He was over hanging over the side of the boat. He went like this to like scoop him up. I don't know. He's an idiot. This was like 10 years
God.
ago. And the bluefish literally bit his nose and he had to get stitches on his nose. It was
Yeah,
pretty funny.
yeah. I mean, the other week I was out with Jimmy Fee and we got into some blues, and they weren't feeding as voraciously for us as some other guys down the beach. But I had one in my hands, and it went from my fingers real quick when we were trying to get a release photo. So they're not
They're
afraid.
mean.
Yeah,
They're mean.
yeah. They'll
But
get
hey,
up close and personal.
that's what makes them fun is they're
Yeah.
so mean and you know what I mean? Like I said, enjoy them. This is a bluefish plug right here, cotton cordell pencil popper. I just take off I got a BKK hook on the back and you know, I just take off the middle one, just where I have somewhere nice to grab on, and
Yeah, it makes
it's
it much
great,
easier. Yeah, exactly.
much easier.
And so, because you don't have those blues around, you know, over the course of June as much as you normally would, or as much as you'd like to, I should say. What kind of changes for you over the next month as the migration kind of comes to a steady, slow halt? And where can people, you know, reach out to you to book with you?
Well, to reach out and book with me, obviously you can call me. You know, that's the best way. You know, I do email as well, or Facebook or Instagram. You can reach me out at Joe Diorio Guide Service.
Cool.
But calling is probably the best way. It's all on my website as well, joediorioguideservice.com. My phone number's on there. So that's the best way to reach out to me. We only have a few dates left. I'm actually booked up until September right now, me personally, and then I have another charter captain that works along with me, and he has I think like 6 dates left for June, and then he's booked until September as well.
Hell yeah.
So it's you know, like I said, if anyone wants to get out, it's a good time to get out. June is obviously the best month, you know, for spring and early summer, and then we have a bunch of dates, like I said, in September and October, which is unbelievable. I mean, September obviously albies, October is stripers, albies,
Yeah.
tog, everything like that. But you know, as far as like you know, once this fishing comes to an end, you know, like I said, the whole month of June all the way till the first or second week of July is usually really, really good here, whether it's in the Long Island Sound or in the Connecticut River,
Yep.
or just outside of it, you know, Thames River. The race is obviously very good. The gut is very good. You know, places like Fisher Island starts to turn on, Watch Hill Point, the Rhode Island coastline, and those fish, like I said, they just move. They move east. They keep going east. You know, so and I think a lot of those Narragansett Bay fish, they continue to go east towards the Cape. They go around the Cape, you know, North Shore, and stuff like that. So, you know, there's always a place to fish, you know, and you will have fish that, you know, are coming still from Raritan, you know, and you know, they're still coming up from the Raritan. So there's always fish behind you, just might not be as much as there are ahead of you.
Right.
So the best thing I could say for people is don't be afraid. I mean, it stinks with gas prices now, but don't be afraid to drive around, search new spots, you know, don't follow the bite. That's the one thing I would say.
Yeah.
This morning I had a buddy call me up and say, hey, they're going off here. And I was like, I doubt it, but I'm going to go run and chase it because, you know, it was getting a little slower we were, and I went and chased it, and we didn't mark a fish. You know what I mean? So I should have taken my own advice because I hardly ever chase people or chase bites. Usually I have a general idea what's going to happen, and, you know, because I'm on the water every single day of the week. But I was like, you know, what's the worst thing that happens? We get skunked. And we marked only like 2 or 3 fish, and I was like, boys, this just isn't going to happen. You want to go back downriver? And they were like, yeah, let's go back down. And we ended up picking off a couple more fish.
Good.
So like I said, we wasted a little time, but the biggest thing is find your fish, find your own fish. Don't follow the bite, you know, because by the time someone says, hey, this bite's good here, it's probably bad. and those fish have probably moved on to a different
Yeah,
area.
it's like the bite was good. Yeah, exactly. You got to go off the beaten path and kind of create your own bite sometimes. Yeah, I'm totally with
No
that.
one's gonna send you a text message or give you a call when the bite's going up like crazy. They're
Right.
gonna call you when it starts to slow down, because that's when they have a chance to actually give you a call. So
Exactly.
take notes, and then go there an hour before the next day.
Exactly. Yeah. Go. Yeah. Time that tide out perfectly.
Exactly. So that's the best advice I can give to people, is follow see where your migration's going, try to be ahead of it. So this way you hit it head on.
Yeah. Yeah. You always got options. Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure having you, Joe, and thanks so much for talking about all the types of fishing you're doing around Connecticut, and tight lines out there with all your clients. You're fully booked, so good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Matt. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Take care.
You too.
That's all the time we have for this week. Thanks again to Captain Joe Diorio for joining me to talk stripers around the Long Island Sound and Connecticut River. Topwater striper season has officially begun, especially if you can locate some muddy flats where there's current and mild structure. Remember what Joe said, bass are opportunistic predators that tend to be pretty lazy, which means that on sandy flats, a shallow trough or a drop-off where the water is moving more slowly is all a striper needs to conserve its energy and maximize its ability to feed. As the water continues to warm up throughout June, think about the different environments that play to the feeding habits of striped bass. Whether it's a shallow flat in stained water or a deep rip over some boulders off Block Island, those migratory bass will begin to hunker down throughout the month of June wherever they can find a stable food source. There's plenty of bait to go around. Menhaden are in thick, along with mackerel, and depending on where you are, squid are still even the main forage. New Englanders have a lot to look forward to in the coming month. Big fish will still be moving north, especially around the new and full moon tides. So grab your favorite topwater plug and hit the water in areas where bait is displaced and bass can easily pick them off. Remember to sign up for Striper Cup if you haven't done so already. For more information on the striper migration, check out onthewater.com, follow us on social media at On The Water Magazine, or watch another one of our striper season updates from the 2022 spring migration. Or if you're really tired of hearing me talk, you can listen to an all-new episode of On The Water podcast featuring Captain Garrett Weir. The On The Water podcast is available on all streaming platforms today. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and check back again next Friday for another striper season update with On The Water.